Welcome to HFY Sci-Fi Stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss new stories. Staff Sergeant Jake Murphy, a veteran of 23 years, had witnessed his share of the peculiar, yet nothing truly prepared him for the bizarre spectacle of three extraterrestrial beings locked in a heated debate over whether human fare constituted genuine cuisine or merely an elaborate form of biological warfare. As he stood in the galley of the diplomatic vessel Harmony, gazing through the viewport at the rapidly approaching Kepler station, he couldn't help but ponder, yet again, the bewildering turn of events that had led him to be the designated chef for this inaugural galactic culinary summit. "Mercy," he murmured, meticulously prepping vegetables, bracing for what would likely be the final respectable meal he'd serve for an indeterminate period. He lamented his choice, wishing he'd remained in the infantry. At least bullets offered a straightforward logic. The Harmony docked with a resonant clang that vibrated through the ship's structure, and Jake could already discern the murmur of diplomatic discourse emanating from the main corridor. He had been anticipating this moment with a profound sense of dread for weeks. Three distinct alien civilizations, each utterly convinced of their culinary supremacy, were poised to descend upon his kitchen like an onslaught of food critics burdened by overwhelming superiority complexes. First to breach the airlock was Kelar, the Voron adjudicator, a creature resembling a 7-foot-tall praying mantis possessing a decidedly haughty demeanor. Every element of his presentation, from his ostentatious ceremonial vestments to the disdainful way he sampled the air as if already affronted by its potential aromas, exuded an air of utter pretentiousness. His translator crackled to life, relaying his rapid clicks and whistles. Ah, the rudimentary human vessel. I can already discern the unrefined emanations of their so-called comestibles. How quaint. Directly following him, with an air of almost regal entitlement, was Zephyia, a crystalline chef whose very being seemed to shimmer, her form akin to a living diamond. Her species, having evolved from silicon-based minerals, evidently possessed an inflated sense of culinary prowess. She moved with an unnerving, rigid precision, suggesting a meticulousness that measured even salt in individual particulate units. "Cheltar, I implore you," she intoned, her voice possessing the discordant quality of strangled wind chimes. "We must refrain from premature judgment. After all, humans are still in their nascent stages of culinary exploration. Perhaps, with another millennium, they might discover the art of seasoning." The final member of this captivating triumvirate was Bloxwin, a nebuloid resembling a sentient amethyst cloud encased within a containment suit. His species subsisted on gases and energy, prompting Jake to question his very presence. Yet apparently, the appreciation of ethereal flavors had become a recognized connoisseurship. "My esteemed colleagues," Bloxwin wheezed through his translator, "I have perused the submitted human dietary profiles. They appear to subsist on scorched animal tissues and processed botanical matter. It is akin to observing juvenile endeavors with combustion, proclaiming it artistic expression." Jake's grip tightened on his knife. These three had spent a mere 30 seconds disparaging human sustenance, and he was already mentally cataloging various preparation methods for his uninvited guests. Nevertheless, he was a professional, a seasoned veteran of combat zones, diplomatic engagements, and a particularly memorable 3-week period catering to a contingent of perpetually dissatisfied senators. He could undoubtedly manage 3 extraterrestrial gastronomes with inflated egos. The station's commanding officer, a visibly weary Captain Rodriguez, delivered the customary address concerning cultural exchange and mutual comprehension. Jake tuned her out, having absorbed the briefing points repeatedly. What he had not been prepared for was the casual dismissiveness with which these beings regarded the entirety of his species' culinary heritage. "I understand humans possess a peculiar affinity for something known as pizza," Kelar remarked to his companions, his mandibles clicking in what Jake surmised was a manifestation of amusement. Flattened dough adorned with microbial colonies and the exudations of domesticated mammals. A fascinating anthropological curiosity. "And their hamburgers," Zephyia chimed in with a crystalline chuckle, reminiscent of shattering glass. "Processed animal protein compacted into geometric forms, so remarkably unsophisticated." Bloxwin's purple nebula swirled with what appeared to be rapturous fascination. "I have encountered references to a confection called hot dogs, which, I understand, are not derived from canines." The inherent deception possesses an almost artistic crudity. Jake, having navigated numerous combat engagements, knew the art of strategic engagement, but these three were relentlessly probing every last nerve. His grandmother's marinara sauce was anything but primitive. His slow-cooked pulled pork was not crude, and his renowned chili, the champion of 3 consecutive base cook-offs, was undeniably not a tool of biological warfare. Yet he maintained a stoic silence, his knife continuing its rhythmic motion, for that was the unspoken creed of a Marine: endure, adapt, and await the opportune moment to retaliate. He simply had not anticipated that his opportunity would arise sooner than expected. The formal presentations commenced 3 hours later within Kepler Station's Central Conference Hall, a sterile metallic amphitheater that seemed to have been conceived by an individual entirely unfamiliar with the concept of sustenance. Jake stood at the rear with the rest of the human delegation, observing as each alien delegation prepared to unveil what they deemed the zenith of their gastronomic achievements. Captain Rodriguez had insisted Jake attend the Galactic Culinary Showcase for cultural context, though Jake suspected it was more an opportunity to witness his cooking being disparaged. Donning his dress uniform, adorned with service ribbons that conjured memories of simpler, more dangerous times, dodging plasma fire instead of enduring culinary criticism, Jake braced himself. Kilar, a Voran with an ostentatious flair that grated on Jake, commenced his presentation with holographic displays and an unnerving symphony of clicking mandibles. "Behold," Kilar proclaimed, indicating translucent, quivering cubes, the essence of enlightenment. Each morsel embodies 17 dimensions of flavor, meticulously calibrated for perfect neural harmony. This is not mere consumption, it is transcendence. Jake eyed the cubes, which resembled detritus scraped from a boot. Yet the alien assembly offered approving murmurs. Apparently, gelatinous mystery fare was haute cuisine in some circles. Kilar elaborated on the 47 hours of meditation, the infinitesimal temperature precision, and the blessed saliva of their monks, concluding with a dismissive jab. Humans, of course, could never grasp such sophistication. Chuckles rippled through the audience, tightening Jake's jaw, though his expression remained impassive. He'd endured worse from competent drill sergeants. Next, Zafara presented her geometric crystals, which chimed upon contact, each purportedly housing compressed nutrients in harmonic frequencies. "Observe," she intoned, her voice like a tuning fork, "the crystalline convergence. Each structure signifies the ultimate fusion of sustenance and artistry. Flavors exist in quantum superposition, collapsing into a symphony that resonates with existence itself at the moment of consumption." Jake grudgingly admitted the crystals were aesthetically pleasing, akin to fine jewelry, but deeming them food was akin to calling a calculator a gourmet meal. The delegates, however, were rapturous, captivated by the revolutionary nutritional aesthetics. Zafara, with an air of palpable smugness, added that such precision demanded centuries of training and an understanding of molecular harmony inaccessible to primitive species. "Humans," she declared condescendingly, "still believe cooking involves applying heat to organic matter. How delightfully archaic." More alien laughter. Jake's hands clenched. For 20 years, he'd applied heat to organic matter, with zero complaints from anyone not a crystal-wielding purist with a superiority complex. Finally, Bloxwind, a nebule, took the stage, releasing swirling, colorful gas clouds that entranced the audience into a state of near-religious ecstasy. "The ethereal banquet," Bloxwind whispered, his voice a pulsing purple mist, "is cuisine liberated from the crude limitations of physical form. These flavor clouds encapsulate taste itself, divorced from the barbaric necessity of mastication and digestion. Simply breathe and achieve perfect nourishment." The gases, smelling of flowers, ozone, and an unidentifiable undertone that evoked childhood summers, were undeniably impressive, if utterly preposterous. "This," Bloxwind declared, "represents the pinnacle of culinary evolution. While lesser species remain shackled by primitive traditions of solid food and cooking fires, we have ascended to pure, gustatory enlightenment. Humans, bless their simple hearts, still gather around flames like their cave-dwelling ancestors. So wonderfully nostalgic." That was it. The cave-dwelling remark was one thing, but the patronizing tone was the final straw. Jake, who'd survived on MREs, cooked for generals and privates alike, and learned recipes passed down through 4 generations of Marines, had just endured an hour of his species' culinary heritage being branded primitive, barbaric, and archaic by these 3 space cadets. Jake stepped forward, his voice cutting through the polite applause like a drill sergeant's whistle. "With all due respect to our distinguished guests," he stated firmly, "I must respectfully disagree with that assessment." The hall fell into a stunned silence. Captain Rodriguez looked as though she might faint. The alien delegates swiveled to fix their gazes upon him. Staff Sergeant Murphy Rodriguez muttered a silent curse at the human intruding upon their celebration of superior gastronomy. "What are you doing?" she demanded, but Jake paid no mind, his gaze fixed on the three aliens who had spent the last hour mocking his every culinary creation. "I'm formally challenging these esteemed chefs to a cook-off. Winner takes all. Let's see just how enlightened, harmonious, and ethereal your food truly is when it clashes with honest, down-to-earth human cooking." The silence that followed felt like an age. Then Queltar began clicking his mandibles, a sound Jake fervently hoped signaled amusement, not the prelude to a declaration of war. Captain Rodriguez stepped forward, her smile as strained as a commander's before a court-martial. "Staff Sergeant Murphy is merely expressing his enthusiasm for cultural exchange. Perhaps we should proceed with the scheduled diplomatic discussions." No, Kalar interjected, his mandibles clicking with increasing speed. "This is utterly fascinating. A human dares to believe he can rival species who have honed culinary arts for millennia. How charmingly naive." Zafara's crystalline form shimmered, betraying what Jake was certain was amusement. "It would be quite educational, wouldn't it? A practical demonstration of the evolutionary chasm between sophisticated cuisine and rudimentary sustenance preparation." Bloxwin's ethereal wind swirled with palpable excitement. "Oh, this is far too delicious to pass up, akin to watching a child challenge a master artist to a painting competition. The sheer entertainment value alone justifies the time investment." Jake felt a muscle in his eye twitch. Being condescended to by a sentient gas cloud was hardly how he'd envisioned his afternoon, yet here they were. "So that's a yes, then? You're accepting my challenge?" "With immense pleasure," Keltar replied, his translator somehow conveying an unmistakable smugness. "Though I feel compelled to inform you that Voran cuisine has claimed the Galactic Gastronomy Awards for the past 3 centuries consecutively, and crystalline molecular harmony techniques," Zephyra added, "are imparted in the most prestigious culinary academies across 17 star systems. While my ethereal gastronomy," Bloxwin wheezed, "has been recognized as a universal art form by the Council of Civilized Worlds." Jake nodded slowly, his expression unreadable. "That's genuinely impressive. I learned to cook from my grandmother and a cohort of Marines who believed Tabasco sauce was a fundamental food group." More alien laughter echoed. Captain Rodriguez looked as though she was seriously contemplating whether a court-martial for Jake would be preferable to the diplomatic fallout he was about to unleash. "Perhaps," she suggested carefully, "we should define the parameters of this friendly competition. I'm certain Staff Sergeant Murphy didn't intend to pose a serious challenge to our esteemed guest's culinary expertise." "Oh, but I did," Jake stated, his voice possessing that unnerving calm that signals impending trouble. "Completely serious. These 3 believe human food is primitive. Let's put it to the test." The station's administrative officer, a visibly nervous man named Director Fleming, cleared his throat. "Well, I suppose we could arrange access to the station's primary kitchen facility. It's equipped to accommodate the dietary requirements of multiple species and possesses all the necessary apparatus for—" "Excellent," Kalar interrupted, "though I confess I feel a pang of guilt. It's rather like challenging a Stone Age hunter to a philosophical debate." Jake's smile did not reach his eyes. "Don't you fret about me, bug boy. I'll manage just fine." The translation matrix seemed to struggle with bug boy, causing Keltar's mandibles to cease their clicking for a moment. Then he emitted a sound that could have been laughter, or perhaps the alien equivalent of cracking knuckles. "Very well, primitive human. What are your terms?" Jake, having navigated his fair share of bar fights, knew instinctively when to escalate. "Simple. Each of us prepares a meal for the other species present. The best food wins. The loser admits their cuisine isn't as superior as they proclaimed." "And who shall preside over this contest?" Zafara inquired, her crystalline form adopting a sharper edge. "The station personnel," Jake declared. "Neutral parties, devoid of politics or preconceptions, offering straightforward opinions on which food is superior." Bloxwin's mist pulsed with what appeared to be delight. "This is perfect. A public spectacle showcasing culinary evolution in motion. The historical significance alone." 3 hours, Director Fleming announced, consulting his tablet. "That's when the main kitchen will be available. Will that afford sufficient preparation time?" Jake offered a shrug. "I can whip up a decent meal in 30 minutes. 3 hours should be more than enough." 30 minutes. Keltar's mandibles clicked with frantic haste. "My essence of enlightenment necessitates a minimum of 47 hours of dedicated meditation and preparation. How could you possibly conceive anything of worth in such a limited time frame? That's precisely what we're about to discover, Jake replied. The subsequent 2 hours dissolved into a whirlwind of logistical arrangements and Jake's profound questioning of his life choices. He had requested access to the station's personnel files for research. Facing a culinary gauntlet, Jake wrestled with the bewildering intricacies of alien diets and biological limits. Vorthons, he discovered, could process most organic proteins, but were astonishingly sensitive to specific acids. Crystallines demanded precise mineral compositions in their sustenance, yet easily metabolized complex carbohydrates, while nebuloids, despite their ethereal gaseous forms, could incredibly consume solid food, provided it was meticulously prepared for their unique digestive systems. Jake spent agonizing hours poring over dense biochemistry charts, a stream of increasingly inventive curses, a quiet litany under his breath. He had dared to challenge 3 master chefs to a high-stakes cooking contest, armed with alien ingredients he couldn't name, and for species whose complex dietary needs he'd only just absorbed minutes prior. This wasn't just a meal. It was either destined to be the most improbable culinary triumph in galactic history, or he was about to inadvertently ignite the first interstellar war over a disastrous dinner. "Murphy," he muttered, scrutinizing the station's bewildering ingredient inventory, a faint tremor in his hand. "You've cooked for Marines, for senators, even that one time for the president's notoriously allergic nephew. You absolutely have this." He clung to a desperate hope that his grandmother's cherished recipes were as infinitely adaptable as his memory insisted. The colossal kitchen facility sprawled before him, a labyrinth of separate, climate-controlled preparation zones tailored for every conceivable atmospheric requirement, packed with enough advanced equipment to provision a small army. Jake moved through it with the focused intensity of a seasoned commando on a reconnaissance mission, his eyes meticulously mapping the precise location of every pot, pan, and esoteric thermal regulator. His 3 formidable opponents were already ensconced, each meticulously assembling their wildly elaborate preparation stations. Keltar, the Vorthon, had erected something resembling a portable, sound-dampened meditation chamber, humming with unseen energies. Zephyra, the crystalline, was arranging her delicate crystalline instruments with breathtaking, almost obsessive mathematical precision. And Bloxwin, the nebuloid, was fine-tuning a complex gas-mixing apparatus that seemed ripped straight from the most avant-garde chemistry lab. Jake, by stark contrast, simply rolled up his sleeves, his movements precise and economical, organizing his workspace with military-grade efficiency. His menu, forged during the desperate hours of research, consisted of 3 timeless human classics, painstakingly re-engineered for alien biologies. It was either going to be a stroke of unparalleled culinary genius or an unmitigated, galaxy-wide catastrophe. "Ready when you are, gentlemen," he called out, his voice steady, not even glancing up from the meticulous dance of his prep work. The moment of truth had arrived. Jake Bulldog Murphy stood poised to either etch human cuisine into the annals of intergalactic respect or to spectacularly, humiliatingly, fail before half the known galaxy. Regardless, it promised to be riveting. Director Fleming, his arm raised like a cosmic starter pistol, boomed, "Chefs, you have 3 hours. Begin now." Immediately, Jake's rivals plunged into their elaborate, almost ritualistic preparations. Keltar sealed himself within his shimmering meditation chamber, the faint, rhythmic click of his mandibles echoing with what sounded like ancient Vorthon chants. Zephyra, her movements fluid and exact, began orchestrating her crystalline instruments into complex, shimmering geometric patterns, each placement calibrated to an infinitesimal millimeter. Bloxwin, meanwhile, commenced blending his gaseous concoctions with the chilling precision of a deranged alchemist, vibrant purple mist swirling eerily around his protective containment suit. Jake, in stark contrast, simply cracked his knuckles, a familiar reassuring sound, and began to work. "Look at him," Keltar's voice, laced with clear amusement, crackled from his chamber's translator. "He's merely chopping vegetables. No ceremony, no spiritual preparation. How exquisitely primitive." "Observe the crude technique," Zephyra chimed in, her crystalline forms glinting with disdain as she calibrated her molecular harmonizer. "Random cuts, inconsistent sizes. There is no mathematical precision whatsoever to his methodology." Jake, unflustered, utterly ignored their pronouncements and pressed on. His first masterpiece, spaghetti carbonara, meticulously re-engineered for Vorthon physiology. The crucial challenge lay with the eggs. Vorthons utterly lacked the enzymes to properly digest standard protein structures. Yet Jake, with a flash of desperate genius, had unearthed a remarkable substitute in the station's eclectic stores: Quellian bird eggs. Their protein structure, while similar, boasted unique amino acid chains perfectly compatible with Vorthon digestive systems. He began by slowly rendering down thick, fatty strips of pork belly, sourced from the human supply cache, allowing them to crisp to golden perfection while he tirelessly prepped his pasta. While the station's advanced food fabricator could churn out a reasonable facsimile of spaghetti, Jake knew, deep in his chef's soul, that fresh pasta was the beating heart of the dish. He blended fine flour with the precious Quellian eggs, a generous splash of rich olive oil, and a delicate pinch of salt, then plunged his hands into the nascent dough, kneading it with the fluid, rhythmic precision honed by decades of instinct and practice. Is he making his own pasta? Bloxwin's swirling mist momentarily stilled in disbelief. From scratch? How utterly inefficient. Barbarically time-consuming, Keltar echoed, his voice dripping with condescension. Why not simply synthesize the optimal nutritional matrix directly? Oblivious to their judgment, Jake expertly rolled out the silken dough, sliced it into flawless, delicate strands, and gracefully eased them into the furiously boiling, salted water. The very essence of carbonara, he knew, was perfect timing. Every component had to converge at the precise, fleeting moment, or the delicate egg-based sauce would irrevocably scramble. He had crafted this dish 1,000 times over, but never, he mused, for a 7-foot-tall space mantis who probably considered human food nothing more than primitive slop. As the pasta simmered, Jake seamlessly transitioned to his second culinary creation, an intricately deconstructed sugar sculpture designed for the crystalline Zephara. Crystallines possessed an extraordinary biological imperative for specific mineral content. Their unique physiology meant they literally integrated ingested minerals directly into their sparkling body structures. Jake, with a spark of pure ingenuity, had devised a method to craft breathtakingly edible crystals using exquisitely crystallized sugars, infused with precisely calibrated trace minerals. Drawing upon a Parisian pastry chef's technique from his last leave, Jake heated sugar to a hard crack, then precisely infused it with calcium carbonate, magnesium sulfate, and subtle trace elements, meticulously balancing heat to achieve the perfect crystalline structure for Zepha's silicon-based form. Zephara's voice, tinged with bewilderment, questioned the unconventional crystal formation. Jake poured the molten sugar into custom geometric molds, destined to fracture and release layered flavors, each crystal a dual offering of Zephara's mineral needs and a nuanced taste progression. Impossible, Zephara murmured, astonished that Jake was forging harmonic resonance structures without the aid of quantum crystallography, yet they solidified precisely as calculated, their internal lattices refracting light in patterns captivating to crystalline aesthetics. His most daunting creation, molecular gastronomy for Bloxwin, addressed their gaseous existence. Jake, inspired by late-night cooking shows during deployments, transformed rich, reduced chicken stock into minuscule flavor pearls, flash-frozen with liquid nitrogen, which would burst to release aromatic compounds within an edible gel matrix dissolving at body temperature, mimicking solid food consumption for the nebuloids. Bloxwin's mist swirled in surprise, exclaiming, "That's actually quite ingenious. He's crafting a dual-phase consumption experience. The theory holds, but the execution is impossible without specialized gear." Jake, a master of resourcefulness, repurposed a whipped cream dispenser into a molecular gastronomy tool, utilized station medical liquid nitrogen as a flash freezing agent, and employed a standard immersion blender for stable emulsions, all while his rivals engaged in elaborate rituals. Keltar's meditation chamber hummed with harmonic frequencies for flavor alignment. Zephra conducted a symphony of tuned crystalline instruments for molecular vibrations, and Bloxwin precisely mixed gases into mesmerizing clouds. "The human seems to be enjoying himself," Keltar observed with clicking mandibles and puzzlement, unaware of Jake's genuine delight. This was his forte, adapting to the impossible, maximizing limited resources, and solving intractable problems, much like his past experiences catering to generals with extreme dietary restrictions, flavorless marines, and peanut-averse dignitaries. Facing 3 alien food critics was simply another challenge. By the 2-hour mark, Jake's carbonara sauce reached peak consistency, his sugar crystals cooled perfectly, and his molecular gastronomy spheres achieved flawless suspension, filling the kitchen with an improbable yet harmonious blend of rendered pork smoke, sweet crystallized sugar, and concentrated chicken stock savors. "I don't understand," Zafara confessed, her crystalline form flickering. His methods are crude, yet the aromatics are surprisingly refined. Bloxon's swirling purple mist swirled with agitation, adding, the molecular structures he's forming shouldn't be stable. He's achieving advanced results with rudimentary equipment. Jake meticulously plated his first dish, the carbonara nestled in a perfectly warmed bowl, the al dente pasta coated in a luxurious sauce, finished with fresh cracked pepper and station-aged cheese for an ideal flavor profile. Time, Director Fleming announced, and Jake stepped back. Jake, wiping his hands on his apron, surveyed his 3 perfectly plated dishes. Each was tailored for an alien palate, yet undeniably human in its heart, a testament to skill and ingenuity, not esoteric tools. His rival's preparations remained chaotic. Keltar's trembling gelatinous cubes, Zafara's resonating crystals, Bloxwind's disorienting gas swirls. Well, Jake declared, shedding his apron, let's see if this enlightenment truly satisfies the soul. The main hall, now a vibrant dining space for diverse species, buzzed with anticipation. 30 station personnel had gathered, drawn by the drama, dubbed the most important meal in galactic history by the comms officer. Director Fleming, looking decidedly out of his depth, addressed the assembly. Esteemed beings, we commence the tasting. Jake proudly presented his cart, each item meticulously prepared. The carbonara steamed invitingly, sugar crystals shimmered, and molecular spheres danced in edible gel. Staff Sergeant Murphy, Fleming announced, your first dish. Jake cleared his throat, presenting the carbonara. For our Vorthon guest, he explained, a human classic, adapted. Quellian eggs and rendered pork, precisely calibrated for your system, with pasta pre-treated for enhanced flavor. Kalar, the Vorthon, eyed the bowl with suspicion. His kin clicked mandibles in nervous amusement. Just noodles, Kalar stated, his translator struggling. Where is the spiritual resonance, the hours of meditation? Try it, Jake urged. Kalar cautiously took the bite, his mandibles freezing, his compound eyes widening. This is, he began, then paused, taking another, larger bite. This is impossible. The flavor. It builds. Richness, then protein, then something else. Something I can't identify. Love, Jake revealed. My grandmother's secret, plus black pepper. Keltar devoured the dish, his earlier reserve vanishing. The texture, the temperature. It's incredible. How did you know the pH balance? I read your medical files, Jake replied. Understood your needs and worked backward. You studied our biology? Keltar's mandibles clicked in astonishment. In 3 hours. The bowl was nearly empty, Keltar scraping for every last drop. Around them, Vorthons stared at their critic in disbelief. This, Kalar whispered, is the most complex flavor I've ever experienced. It's a story, a narrative in taste. Jake moved to his second creation. For Zepha, he announced, presenting a crystalline sugar sculpture designed for silicone-based life forms. Each crystal offers necessary minerals, arranged for a dissolving flavor progression. Zafara examined the intricate structure, its facets refracting light into a dazzling display. The table's mathematical elegance was truly remarkable, Zafara conceded with grudging admiration. Yet it was merely sugar, crystallized glucose enhanced with mineral additives. Where were the quantum harmonics, the molecular resonance frequencies? Taste it, Jake urged. Zafara lifted a small crystal, touching it to her crystalline lips. Jake watched as it melted, its mineral essence flowing into her. A soft, warm luminescence began to suffuse her form. Oh, she breathed, her voice now resonating with an unfamiliar, captivating harmony. Oh, my. She reached for a larger, more intricate crystal. As it dissolved, her glow intensified, and Jake fancied he heard her very being chime like a finely tuned bell. This is extraordinary, she whispered. The mineral balance is exquisitely attuned to my physiology, and the dissolution rate, Jake, it crafts a temporal flavor narrative. Each crystal unfurls its components at distinct intervals, weaving a symphony of taste that evolves with every passing moment. Her consumption quickened, her crystalline structure pulsing with vibrant light as new minerals were absorbed. The iron fortifies my structural integrity. The silicon refines my optical clarity. The calcium engenders harmonic resonance within my auditory systems. But how did you ascertain this precise sequencing? Jake offered, trial and error, along with fundamental chemistry. I surmised that if your very essence is crystalline, you would prefer nourishment that harmonizes with your innate structure rather than opposing it. Zafara's voice transformed into pure, melodic harmony, akin to a choir of wind chimes. This represents the most perfect fusion of form and function I have ever encountered. It nourishes my body, yes, but it elevates me, making me more than I was. The other crystalline observers gazed at their representative, their expressions alight with sheer wonder. Zafara radiated a brilliance Jake had never witnessed, her crystalline form projecting kaleidoscopic patterns throughout the vast hall. "This is utterly impossible," she marveled, reaching for another crystal. "I can perceive my molecular structure optimizing in real time. The flavor transcends mere taste. It is structural enhancement, evolution through ingestion." Jake then turned to his final creation, a molecular gastronomy masterpiece for Bloxwyn. An edible gel matrix shimmered, cradling suspended flavor pearls, each meticulously designed to rupture and release aromatic compounds upon consumption. "This one is for you, Bloxwyn. It's formulated for gaseous consumption, yet it retains the structural intricacy of solid sustenance. The flavor pearls will dissolve at your body temperature, releasing compounds you can directly absorb." He presented the dish to Bloxwyn, who regarded it with a palpable sense of skepticism. A tendril of purple mist snaked from Bloxwyn's containment suit as he contemplated the offering. It is solid food," Bloxwyn articulated. "How am I to ingest solid matter in my natural state?" Jake reassured him, "Trust the process." Bloxwyn extended a wispy tendril of purple mist towards the dish. The instant it made contact, the gel matrix began to dissipate, releasing flavor pearls that burst into fragrant clouds. The effect was immediate and profoundly striking. What is this?" Bloxwyn exclaimed, his voice laced with astonishment as the flavor clouds melded with his gaseous essence. "I can taste it, yet I am not eating it. I am breathing flavor." The initial wave of taste washed over him, causing his purple mist to swirl in intricate patterns. Chicken stock, but concentrated, intensified. The protein molecules are fragmenting into individual amino acids, each carrying a distinct flavor component. Another wave, and his mist began to pulse with an inner radiance. Herbs, multiple varieties, each releasing compounds at varied rates. Thyme, rosemary, sage. But they are intermingling, forging flavor combinations that defy natural possibility. Jake elucidated, "That's the essence of molecular gastronomy. We can engineer gustatory experiences that are entirely novel. The flavors are calibrated to build and interact dynamically over time." Bloxwyn was now completely engrossed, his entire being swirling around the dissolving dish. This is transcendence. True transcendence. Not the sophomoric philosophical posturing I often engage in, but genuine elevation of sensory experience beyond conventional limits. The flavor pearls continued their release in carefully timed waves, each perfectly complementing the others. Jake observed as Bloxwyn's mist grew brighter and more complex, developing new hues and patterns with every effervescent burst of flavor. "I can perceive the molecular architecture of each element," Bloxwyn declared, his voice resonating with reverence. "The way they are engineered to interact with my gaseous form. It's as if you comprehend my biology more intimately than I do." Jake replied humbly, "I simply perused the manual, deciphered your requirements, and constructed the sustenance accordingly." "The manual?" Bloxwyn's mist paused its swirling. "You refer to the standard nebuloid physiological documentation? That arid compilation of our fundamental biological parameters?" "Functions? Yes, quite thoroughly. Once I understood your digestive system, the rest was pure chemistry." Word quickly spread through the hall as station personnel gathered, utterly mesmerized, watching three of the galaxy's most haughty food critics crumble into emotional puddles thanks to human cooking. Keelar still scraped his bowl, desperately trying to capture every last drop of carbonara. Zafara radiated like a miniature sun, her crystalline form more breathtaking than Jake had ever witnessed. Bloxwyn, having absorbed his entire meal, swirled in patterns that were pure, visible joy. "This is impossible," Queltar stammered, staring into his empty bowl. "Such profound flavor complexity should demand decades of dedicated training and spiritual preparation," Zafara added, her voice still resonating with harmonic brilliance. "This structural perfection should require advanced quantum crystallography and molecular engineering." Bloxwyn concluded, his mist pulsing with vibrant new hues. "This sensory transcendence should necessitate ethereal gastronomy techniques mastered over centuries." Jake simply shrugged. I just made food that tasted good to you. I used ingredients that complemented your biology, not fought against it. It's hardly rocket science." The ensuing silence was shattered by demands from other station personnel, eager to sample the alien dishes. Yet after tasting Jake's ingenious adaptations, the elaborate presentations from his rivals suddenly seemed hollow. The gelatinous cubes offered mere texture, the crystalline structures were visually stunning, but flavorless, and the gas clouds, though aromatic, provided no true satisfaction. It was abundantly clear. The contest was over, and Jake had triumphed far more decisively than anyone could have predicted. The formal judging was almost an afterthought. Station personnel sampled both the alien creations and Jake's reinterpretations, the results so overwhelmingly one-sided that Director Fleming saw no need for a formal vote. The gelatinous cubes were politely termed texturally interesting. The crystalline structures were lauded as visually impressive but nutritionally void. The gas clouds were aromatic but ultimately unfulfilling. Jake's dishes, conversely, elicited what the station's medical officer described as the most profoundly positive biological responses I've ever recorded from interspecies food consumption. But the true victory wasn't in the official verdict. It was in witnessing three of the galaxy's most arrogant epicures come to grips with being outshone by a Marine who learned to cook from his grandmother and a crew who considered hot sauce a staple vegetable. Keelar broke first. Rising from his table, his opulent robes rustling, he approached Jake with a carefully measured dignity, clearly struggling to maintain his composure. "Staff Sergeant Murphy," he began, his mandibles clicking in what Jake now recognized as sincere deference. "I owe you a profound apology." "No need," Jake replied, wiping his hands on a kitchen towel. "You were just working with what you knew." "No, you don't understand," Keeltar insisted, his multifaceted eyes locking onto Jake with an almost palpable intensity. "I have devoted 3 centuries to the study of culinary arts. I have sampled the most exquisite delicacies from 17 different star systems. I have penned definitive works on flavor theory and gastronomic philosophy. And in all that time, I have never experienced anything remotely approaching what you have just served me." He gestured toward his empty bowl with a reverence that bordered on awe. That carbonara wasn't merely food. It was a dialogue, a profound exchange between chef and diner that spoke directly to my genetic memory. I tasted the very history of your species in every bite. The struggles, the adaptations, the ingenuity born from necessity. Jake shifted, feeling unexpectedly awkward. He'd braced himself for alien arrogance, diplomatic crises, even a fight to escape the station. He had certainly not prepared for effusive, poetic testimonials about his grandmother's pasta. "It's just pasta," he mumbled. "No," Queltar stated firmly. "It's not just pasta. It's irrefutable proof that our approach to cuisine has been fundamentally flawed. We became so fixated on complexity and refinement that we overlooked the single most vital element: connection. Your food forged a connection between us that transcends all species boundaries." Zafara then approached, her crystalline form still shimmering with the residual energy from Jake's sugar creations. She moved with an unearthly grace, as if his mineral-enhanced crystals had somehow perfected her entire motor system. "I too must apologize," she stated, her voice carrying harmonies that made the very air seem to resonate. "I dismissed your techniques as primitive, but they are, in fact, the most advanced form of nutritional engineering I have ever encountered." "Advanced?" Jake raised an eyebrow. "I just mixed sugar with a few basic ingredients. You crafted a remarkable nutritional blend that improved my cellular structure while delivering an exceptional taste experience." Zafara explained the complex calculations needed for dissolution rates, mineral interactions, and flavor sequencing, tasks usually demanding supercomputers and extensive research. Yet I accomplished it with just a candy thermometer and fundamental chemistry, Jake revealed. "Precisely," Zafara's radiance increased. "Your perfect outcome with simple tools and innate understanding isn't primitive. It's genius. True artistry transcends sophisticated equipment, relying instead on profound mastery of core principles to achieve wonders with basic materials." Bloxwin was the last to approach, his purple mist swirling in what Jake perceived as deep thought. The nebuloid's gaseous form had transformed, adopting new colors and textures after the molecular gastronomy dish, appearing more substantial. "Staff Sergeant Murphy," Bloxwin stated, his voice carrying an unfamiliar depth. "Your achievement today surpasses mere cooking. You've demonstrated the seemingly impossible. You made me feel tangible," Bloxwin simply conveyed. For the first time, I experienced solidity, a state beyond dispersed particles held by electromagnetic forces. Your food didn't just sustain me, it gave me a sense of reality. Jake surveyed the assembled crowd. Station personnel were still abuzz, discussing the implications of the event. Other alien representatives approached with curiosity, not disdain. Even Captain Rodriguez appeared impressed, though she strove to maintain her diplomatic composure. I believe, Kalar commented, his mandibles clicking thoughtfully, that we must fundamentally reevaluate our concept of haute cuisine. Agreed, Zafara concurred. The Galactic Culinary Council should initiate an exchange program. We have much to learn from human culinary methods. More than that, Bloxwin added enthusiastically, his mist swirling. We should host the annual Galactic Gastronomy Summit on Earth. Let human chefs impart what we've overlooked. Jake raised his hands. Whoa, hold on. I'm just one person with knives and family recipes. I don't represent all of human cuisine. But you do, Kalar insisted. Don't you see? Your demonstration reveals not just individual skill, but a fundamental approach to food inherent in your species. You cook with intuition, emotion, and a desire to nourish and connect. That's why your food elicits such profound experiences. We've approached cuisine as an intellectual pursuit, Zafara added, emphasizing mathematical precision, technological advancement, and theoretical frameworks. But you revealed that the most crucial element isn't quantifiable or synthesizable. Care, Bloxwin stated. You cooked with care. It wasn't just technical prowess, but genuine concern for our well-being, our enjoyment, and our unique requirements. That was the true differentiator. Director Fleming approached, holding a tablet filled with official documentation. Staff Sergeant Murphy, I've received authorization from Earth Command to offer you a permanent role as Cultural Culinary Liaison for the Galactic Diplomatic Corps. The compensation significantly exceeds your current rank, and you'll oversee the development of interspecies cuisine programs throughout the galaxy. Jake stared at the tablet. You want me to cook for aliens professionally? We want you to showcase what human cuisine can achieve, Fleming corrected. Based on today's events, you could be more instrumental in fostering interspecies relations than any treaty we've ever established. Jake glanced around the hall again. Kalar still radiated the satisfaction of an exceptional meal. Zafia literally sparkled, her crystalline structure enhanced. Bloxwin's mist swirled in patterns that seemed to embody visible happiness. Station personnel were already requesting his culinary services for their own species. Even the other alien representatives approached with curiosity, a stark contrast to the condescension he had grown accustomed to. You know what? Jake said, a genuine grin finally appearing. Why not? But I have stipulations. Name them, Fleming replied. First, I need a proper kitchen, not a sterile lab. A real kitchen with gas burners, cast iron pans, and ample space to move without colliding with meditation chambers. Agreed. Second, I require access to authentic Earth ingredients, not synthesized approximations. To teach the galaxy about human cuisine, I need genuine supplies. Absolutely. Jake's grin stretched even wider, a spark igniting in his eyes. I absolutely want to share my grandmother's entire recipe collection. If we're going to revolutionize galactic cuisine, we must do it with genuine heart and soul. The three alien food critics exchanged intrigued glances. Kalar, the most imposing, broke the silence. Staff Sergeant Murphy, he began, his voice resonating with newfound respect. Jake, would you truly be willing to impart those treasured recipes to us? We would be profoundly honored to absorb your family's rich culinary heritage. Jake paused, a wave of surreal reflection washing over him. Mere hours ago, these very beings had cruelly dismissed human food as primitive slop, a biological atrocity. Now they humbly requested to learn from his grandmother's cherished, handwritten recipe cards. All right, he declared, a decisive tone entering his voice. I'll teach you everything I know about human cooking, but you have to promise me something in return. Zafara, her gaze unwavering, responded instantly. Anything! Jake laid down his conditions. No more deeming food primitive simply because it's humble. No more equating complexity with superiority. And for the sake of everything sacred, absolutely no more meditation chambers polluting the kitchen. He elaborated passionately. Food is meant to unite us, not splinter us into sterile spiritual factions. Agreed, the three aliens echoed in perfect unison. Jake nodded, taking in the transformed atmosphere of the hall. Just an hour ago, he was merely an enlisted cook on a diplomatic mission. Now, He found himself as the galaxy's inaugural interspecies culinary ambassador, with 3 former gourmands as his eager protégés. "You know," he mused aloud, not directed at anyone in particular, "my grandmother always said cooking was simply another beautiful way of caring for people." A satisfied smile played on his lips. Turns out, she was spot on about that, too. He paused, adding with the deep contentment of a mission accomplished, she was also right about the secret ingredient being love. Though I suspect a healthy dash of "I'll show you" certainly didn't hinder the process. The ensuing laughter, a symphony of shared joy, transcended language barriers. Jake understood then that some truths, like the profound pleasure of good food, were indeed universal, bridging every species.